Well, it is that time of the month again, everyone, to give our updated MLS Power rankings through 8 weeks. We're going to give our top 10 teams in MLS through 8 weeks, but we're also going to give our bottom five teams in MLS through the first 5 weeks. But before we get into that, make sure you like this video down below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Our goal is to hit 7,000 subscribers by the end of the month. We're almost at 6,500. So make sure you subscribe if you haven't already and hit that little bell notification so you never miss a video. So I thought we would start off with the bottom five teams first and build up to the top 10 teams in MLS through 8 weeks. And starting off at number 26, we have the Houston Dynamo. Now, if you followed me for a while, you know I'm not a big fan of Ben Olsen. I've always been skeptical about him as a manager, and I thought he was very mediocre at DC United and always left more to be desired. But he gets a chance at Houston, gets into the playoffs his first 2 seasons, and they have completely regressed in 2025. Now, they did sell Coco Carrasquilla. They got rid of Hector Herrera, and this team has just absolutely collapsed. They also missed Steve Clark in goal, and their big signing in Ezequiel Ponce just hasn't panned out. He's only got 2 goals this year. He cost $10 million or $9 million last year, and he just hasn't delivered or been the player that they thought he was going to be. Now, they did trade for Jack McGlynn from the Philadelphia Union, but he hasn't done anything, honestly. He's been very, very disappointing for the Houston Dynamo. And they're really missing that creative playmaker who can just tie everything together. This team is just abysmal. They've only got 1 win this year. They've conceded 12 goals. They've only scored 6 goals through 8 games. Just a disaster in Houston. It's really sad, especially with a team that's won as many MLS Cups as they have, how far that they've fallen, or just how they're so inconsistent and can't really put together more than maybe 2 seasons of playoff appearances. So I have them at number 26. At 27, I have DC United. Now, DC United is a team that I really was surprised they performed as well as they did last year, but that was a lot to do with Christian Benteke. Christian Benteke obviously is a very inconsistent goal scorer in his European career, right? But when he came to MLS, he has proven to be a very consistent scorer. He scored like 24 goals, won the Golden Boot in MLS last year. And I thought to myself, look, if this team wants to win and be a competitor or a contender in 2025, they've got to get him some help. Teams are double teaming him, marking him, and he's just completely ineffective. He's not, I don't want to say useless, but obviously they've managed to take him away or take him out of the game. And if you got a number 10, and it's funny, number 10s are just so important in MLS, especially to help your goal scorers out. But if you could get somebody who could create chances and take the burden off of Christian Benteke, it would be a completely different team. And they just haven't done that. And it's a team that feels like they've checked out. Maybe a team that's going to be for sale in the near future. Who knows? But Troy Lessin obviously has been very underwhelming as a manager as well. Was very skeptical of him when he got the job after he left the New York Red Bulls. They really should have hired Bruce Arena. They hired Troy Lessin. And it's funny that they played the San Jose Earthquakes 2 weeks ago. And I think Bruce Arena had motivation that game because it was a team that passed him over, and they beat him 6-1. The San Jose Earthquakes beat DC United 6-1. Just feels like they're checked out. A lot of issues with this team, and I don't see it getting any better. This is one of the worst teams in Major League Soccer, and they're very, very hard to watch in 2025. Moving on to 28, we have Sporting Kansas City. Sporting Kansas City finally fired Peter Vermees after we have been calling for this for years because of the mediocrity he has produced or not produced is a manager. They finally move off of him. Now, they did get their first win last week, but they went back to losing this week. And, it's going to be hard to turn this around just because there's so much this team needs to do and need to change, and they don't really have a lot of time to do it this season. This season's kind of a wash, but they finally move off Peter Vermees. I'm excited to see what they do in the future with this team and what direction they go and who they're going to hire as their manager. But it's just a shame that it took this bad of performances, 2 years in a row from Peter Vermees actually it's been more than 2 years, but just this many bad performances, mediocre performances for him to finally get fired. But we are glad he did. He's not a good manager anymore. He is a dinosaur in modern MLS. Happy for the Sporting Kansas City fans, but it's going to be a rough season. I have them at number 28. Now, moving on to number 29, we have a team that was in the same discussion as the Seattle Sounders just 5, 6 short years ago. This is a team that made 3 MLS Cups in a 4 to 5 year period, won an MLS Cup, went to the CONCACAF Champions League, CONCACAF Champions Cup final, and completely just irrelevant. Back to the way they were pre-Sebastian Jovinko. And Toronto FC has been hamstrung by Lorenzo Insigne's terrible deal, $15 million a year. They've had, 4 managers since Greg Vanney. They've had Chris Armas. They've had Bob Bradley. They've had Tom Herman. They've had Robin Fraser. So they've had 4 different managers since Greg Vanney, who was the first and only manager to lead them to the playoffs. And they've signed a couple guys like Ola Bryn Hildson, Theo Cornbinu. They've signed several different guys, but it's just not really working out. And it's sad because Toronto FC really had became one of those teams in MLS, and they just completely wiped out all the progress that they had built in this league. And I think Robin Fraser is going to inevitably get fired as well. So they're going to have another managerial change probably next season, because I don't think he's the right guy for this job either. And it's really sad. And they have the money, they have the resources to really get this thing back on track. It's really a shame when you think about it. So we'll see what happens with Toronto FC, but I don't have much hope. Now, Federico Bernardeschi, I have to mention, has played pretty well this season. He's been the lone bright spot, in my opinion, for the team, but I just don't think it's going to be enough in 2025. Okay, moving on to number 30, the bottom of the barrel, worst team in Major League Soccer in 2025, and that is Montreal. Montreal was the first team to fire their coach, Laurent Courtois, and they appointed Marco Donadel, and it really hasn't made much of a difference. They just have been absolutely terrible, and they really haven't been that good since Wilfried Nancy left, and it just shows you how incredible of a manager he is, what he was able to do. Second place finish with a team that's not honestly it's not far off talent-wise from what this team is right now. They had traded for Giacomo Vrioni from the New England Revolution. He really hasn't done much. They trade for Jalen Neal. He really hasn't done much. This team just feels very broken, and the ownership group seems like they don't really care. Very checked out up in Montreal. Very sad, because they had a lot of potential, and they were a competitive team years ago, especially in the Nacho Piatti days. It's really sad to see a team like this fall off so hard, but they are the worst team in the league. They don't have a single win in 8 games. And you remember what I told you guys? If you have no wins, they're the first 5, 6, and now it's 8 for them. It's unacceptable in a league that promotes parity like MLS. So it's just sad that there's so many teams without wins through 8 weeks. I think we're starting to see a separation between the good teams and the bad teams. I think it's finally starting to happen in MLS because there are roster mechanisms, there are rules to where a good team can effectively separate themselves from bad, low-spending teams in MLS. We'll see what happens, but I got them number 30. Want to know what you guys think. How would you rank who are your worst 5 teams in MLS? Do you agree with my list? Let me know down below. Okay, starting off with the top 10 MLS teams through 8 weeks in 2025. At number 10, we have the Portland Timbers. Portland Timbers are very streaky, but when they're good, they are pretty good. And look, I know a lot of people are skeptical about Phil Neville, I am included, but he has had them playing very well recently, and that's including without Jonathan Rodriguez, their striker. David Costa has been really good, a good replacement for Evander. Not quite as productive, and he's not scoring 20 goals or getting 15 goals and 19 assists, but he has been good. And Anthony has been really good for Portland Timbers in 2025. There's still some defensive lapse, especially late in matches, but in the recent unbeaten run, it feels like they're starting to get some momentum, and they are a team that's starting to figure things out. And in the West, it's wide open. So who knows? Providence Park is obviously a fortress, and we'll see how they continue down further in the season. But right now, they look pretty good, and I have the Portland Timbers at number 10. At number 9, we have the Chicago Fire. Chicago Fire showing signs of life. Now, Greg Berhalter obviously is the butt of many jokes, and he rightfully so. But I can't argue or disagree with them not playing, that they aren't playing better in 2025. I think that they're going to make the playoffs in 2025. You saw them play against Inter Miami this past weekend. It was a scoreless draw, but they are the first team in MLS this year to hold MLS or Inter Miami scoreless in a game. And I think that you can see that they have improved under him, and they're going to make a couple other signings in the summer and hopefully improve the squad even further and maybe even push for a top five finish in the Eastern Conference. And it just feels like there's a buzz around this team. It really does feel like there's a buzz around this team. And Jonathan Bamba has been a very lethal player. Jonathan Baba has been a very, very effective player in the final third. If he could just finish, it'd be even more incredible. But he has added a dynamic to this attack, and I do think he's been a good signing for the Chicago Fire. And so we will see what happens when they can add a playmaker, DP attacker in the summer, which they will do. But yeah, I have to give Greg Berhalter credit for so far in 2025. Chicago Fire definitely have been performing well. I have them at number 9. At number 8, we have Orlando City SC. Orlando City is quietly, they're grinding out results, but they got another gear in them. Atuesta has been a great pickup. He's played much better for Orlando City than he has for LAFC, which I was a little skeptical because after last year, I was starting to wonder if maybe not the game has passed him, but if he was going to ever return to the same player we saw at LAFC in his first stint. He's been playing very well under Oscar Pereira. He has been a difference maker, especially as he's been paired with Araujo. I think they both have played very well. Defensively, they're very sound. Pedro Gallese has obviously been a very consistent goalkeeper. They just need one attacker, maybe Ojeda, to really help things push to the next level. And they're a playoff lock, and they will be, I think, a very dangerous team in the playoffs. Pulisic has been very good for them as well. We will see how they progress. But look, Orlando City is playing very good ball right now. I got them at number 8. Number 7, we have Minnesota United. Now, Minnesota United is honestly very well coached. Eric Ramsey was a coach who was a set piece coach for Manchester United, only 32 years old. Very skeptical about what he would do in MLS, especially not because of the age, but the inexperience as a first team manager. Obviously, the not knowing MLS, the intricacies of the league, because it is a difficult league to adjust to. But his 5-3-2 has really turned into something dangerous in the counterattack, to one of the most dangerous counterattacking teams in MLS. And Tani Aluwase has taken a huge step forward. He's not just scoring, he's dragging defenders, he's creating chances. They don't dominate the ball, but they don't need to. Their low block is tough to crack. When they spring forward, they do it with purpose. Still thin in depth, and I still think that they could add a couple pieces, but this team is competitive. They look really good. Obviously, Kelvin Yeboah is very good as well. They're a pretty fun team to watch. I think Minnesota United is the 7th best team in MLS through 8 weeks. Now, moving on to number 6, we have FC Cincinnati. Now, FC Cincinnati isn't blowing teams away like they did in stretches of 2023 or 2024, but they have matured. This is a team that now wins gritty 1-0 games instead of just needing a shootout. Lucas Engel has been a rock defensively. Abina Nawad Bodo, it continues to be one of the best destroyers in MLS. The question is, can Evander really keep pushing forward and replace that Lucho Acosta role or even exceed what he did? Can Kevin Danke be the goal scorer we saw him in the Belgian Premier League or the Belgian Pro League? Can Kevin Danke be the scorer we saw in the Belgian Pro League? That's to be determined, but this team is playing very good. This feels like a serious cup contender. I think that this is the best version of what we've seen in Cincinnati. And when Matt Miazga comes back, who knows how good this team can really be. This could be the best team in Major League Soccer when it all ties together. We will see. But they will need to be more consistent defensively come playoff time if they really want to win an MLS Cup. Now, moving on to number 5, we have the expansion team, San Diego FC. For an expansion team, San Diego is ahead of schedule. Mikey Veras is coaching very well for a guy who doesn't have a lot of experience, no experience at the first team level, and no experience in MLS. Anders Stryer has played very well. Annabelle Godoy has played very well. So many important players. A team that has never played together before. The core of this team, the whole team actually, has never played together before. And they have gelled so well, so quickly. And they're a team that really, honestly, is scary. They're a scary team. I'm going to be very curious to see what they do in the summer when they make a couple more additions. Normally, what an expansion team does is that they test the waters in the MLS season, see how they perform, see what they need, see what they're weak in. Then they will round out their roster in the summer and just fill the position of need. So if San Diego can add a piece or two this summer, they could be a serious MLS contender in year one. That's a team I'm not willing to bet against. I think that they could be the team in 2025 to really break the barrier, maybe win an MLS Cup as an expansion team since the 1998 Chicago Fire. At number 4, we have Charlotte FC. Charlotte FC isn't just sneaky good anymore. They're just good. They're not always flashy, but they're incredibly organized and they're hard to break down thanks to their coach, Dean Smith. Pep Biel has been a revelation creatively. His ability to pick locks with line splitting passes is elite. Adding Wilfred Zaha was the one piece that really tied it all together, though. He gave them a real wide threat and opened up more space essentially for this team. And they're quietly building an identity of control and patience. Don't be surprised if this is a team that goes on a midseason run and starts knocking off bigger names and bigger teams and is a dangerous team in the 2025 MLS Cup playoffs. Obviously, we're still very in the early stages of the MLS season, but this is a team that's scary and they could also make some moves in the summer. At number 3, we have Inter Miami. Now, Inter Miami's kind of hit a little bit of a lull because Luis Suarez just isn't scoring right now. And that is polar opposite of what he was doing last year. He had like 19 or 20 goals. He's got 1 goal this season, and they're going to have to get some more productivity up top if this team wants to win MLS Cup. Now, I do think that they are a team that is just scary good. They are a team that can score 5-6 goals, no questions asked, no issues, right? But if Luis Suarez isn't scoring, it just puts them at a disadvantage compared to what they had last year. Now, the defense is more organized. Noah Allen has been the most improved player in MLS in 2025. He's been a rock at center back at 5'9". Who would have thought that? Who would have thought that the reserve left back, Noah Allen, would be arguably their best center back in 2025? That was not on my bingo card, honestly. That was not, I did not see that coming. And he's got Toto Alvarez sent to the bench, the $7.5 million center back. They got Maxi Falcone and Noah Allen as the 2 primary center backs, something I'd never foreseen. And he's playing very well, playing very, very well. And you see that Segovia has kind of taken a step back. He's kind of cooled down. Ayande just came back from his injury. He's starting to settle in again. But Messi's playing right now, and that's the most important thing. But this team definitely has taken a step back, but they have the highest ceiling and they have the highest floor of any team in MLS. But they're just not the best team in the league right now, and they are starting to struggle, even though they still are unbeaten. At number 2, we have the surprise of the season. We have the Vancouver Whitecaps. The Caps are playing with serious swagger and confidence like we haven't seen before. Brian White's 4-goal game against Austin FC was a chef's kiss. Perfect example of how clinical they become in the final third under Jesper Sorensen, who has been a great manager for them. What a signing. Very underrated. And this is a team that's up for sale, guys. That's the crazy part. A team that's up for sale that is performing like this with passion and really going for it. I mean, I did not see this coming either. This is a very impressive performance, and hopefully this just builds the momentum that they don't try to move the team, because I would love to keep them in Vancouver. They press high, they transition quickly. They're not afraid to commit numbers forward. They developed a spine with Andres Kubas, Renko Veselinovic that gives them the stability behind the attacking fireworks. This is the best Vancouver has looked since they've joined the league, in my opinion. This is the best version that they've ever had of this team, and it looks sustainable. It looks legit. I have to have Vancouver at number 2. Now, at number 1, we have, and I gave him some love today on Twitter, or X, we have the Columbus Crew. Now, who would have thought that the Columbus Crew, coming off of a disappointing playoff performance last year in 2024, would sell their best player in Cucho Hernandez Honestly, he might be the best player in the history of their club. That's debatable. Um, Best player right now, at least. Cucho Hernandez sold him on opening day of the season, and they're still in first place through 8 games, unbeaten. Who would have thought that? Who would have thought that would be possible? And you have to give an applause to Wilfred Nancy, the best manager in Major League Soccer. Maybe when it's all said and done, the best manager MLS has ever seen. I mean, it's absolutely incredible the way he's been able to adjust. And also, we have to give our flowers to Diego Rossi. Diego Rossi has got to be in the discussion for MVP right now. I mean, he's the most important piece who's held it all together when they got rid of their best player. He deserves a lot of credit. He has really elevated his game, I think, and especially from a leadership role in 2025. He's got to be top 2, top 3 MVP in the MVP discussion so far this season. They just got Daniel Gazdag from Philadelphia, who is a really, really good underrated player. I mean, he's a DP, but people know him if you follow the league, but he's really good. He doesn't get enough credit for how good he is. Very intelligent midfielder, guy who was second, third place in the MVP race 2 or 3 years ago. And they still have room to get a striker this summer. Now, Russell Rowe has obviously been good, but they could still add another striker. They could add another guy up top who is lethal. And that is scary, honestly. This team is just different. And they have been severely overlooked in 2025 because they sold Cucho Hernandez. This is the quietest anyone's ever talked about an undefeated team through 8 weeks in MLS history, I think. And when they get him, the striker, all bets are off. We're going to see a showdown this weekend between Inter Miami and the Columbus Crew to see who is the best team in the league. It's the game of the year so far. Game of the year so far in MLS, Columbus Crew versus Inter Miami. Let me know in the comments section, who are your top 10 teams in MLS right now? Who is the best team in MLS right now? Let me know down below. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like I said, we're trying to hit 7K by the end of the month. And also hit that little bell notification so you never miss a video. Until next time, guys, I will see you all soon.